you for tuning into the Jury Request Show. As always, I'm your host, Chris Allnos, and thank you for tuning in. First, I want to say thank you to all those of you who are following us on Facebook, Twitter, and also on Instagram. And please do subscribe to our YouTube channel. Keep them coming. We'd love to hear your story and share your story on our show. Coming up on today's show, my guest won a court case against the man who sexually abused her when she was young. No other person than Leona O'Callaghan should be joining us on the show. Stay tuned for more of the show. I'll be right back. How are you doing today?
Hi, Chris. Thanks for having me.
Good to see you. Thank you very much for coming on the show.
Not at all. Thanks for having me.
How's things with you? How's the family and everybody?
Everybody is doing much better, yes.
Great.
It's been an eventful couple of weeks, but everybody is getting stronger and
Super.
Support has been great.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you for coming in. Now, Leo, in spite of what happened to you when you were 12 years of age,
Yes.
it was shocking to the nation. It was shocking to everybody internationally. I still try to get through it physically myself, that at 12 years of age, you were raped.
Yeah.
And you were scared to come out just to say it.
Yeah.
Give us your when you were 12 years of age. What was in there as at that time?
It's very hard. I've done a lot of work to be able to make sure that when I remember back then, I don't try and remember it with an adult mind, because you're very different as a child. You're very vulnerable and you believe adults and you're very trusting and naive at times. And I was a typical 12-year-old, and the man who went on to rape me before he ever did anything to me spent a lot of time in our company and got very, it got inside my mind, I suppose, in a way that I still don't fully understand, and made me very paranoid about the people that I was around, and made me trust him, and made me, I suppose, built a sense of loyalty to him before he ever did anything. And he made me kind of very dependent on him. He'd tell me things like he could see spirits and various different things, and that bad things were going to happen to me and that he needed to protect me, until such time as I didn't trust the people around me. And I suppose I believed everything he said. I had no reason not to. And he was a very good friend of somebody that was in the family. That person had died, so he talked a lot about them and I missed them a lot. So I loved listening to his stories about my cousin who had died. So he used that as an opportunity to, I suppose, get inside my mind. I was one of the youngest in the group. So I was most vulnerable, and then he was just very clever. He bought a dog and told me to take the dog for walks in the graveyard on my own. And then once I was on my own, the abuse started. Always made me feel as though it was something both of us did that was wrong. So I always, until I was, I think, about 28, always felt that what had happened with him was something that both of us did wrong.
But how close is he to your family? Is it that very close?
He's a neighbour, so he lived about 5 doors around the corner. And my family trusted him. Like, he's a very clever man, and I suppose now if you see somebody who's nearly 30 and they're hanging out with teenagers and children that are 12, you would know that there's something not okay with that. Back then it was different times and nobody flinched, nobody, I suppose, suspected anything. And yeah, I didn't tell my parents at the beginning. I told a teacher eventually when I was 14, and it stopped then.
Because of this, how do you able to go to bed at night, knowing that this is not right? How do you manage to go to bed at night at that age?
Felt like a double life. It felt like as if I had a normal life when I was around my family, and then I had this big secret, this big horrible secret that I hated. And I was very afraid. I was afraid of, I suppose, the physical pain, but also, like, rape is obviously a physical assault, but the amount of damage it does to your mind, and as a person to just feel all the time as if you're carrying something and a sense of shame that really shouldn't be yours as a child. I just didn't like who I was, and I began to hate myself a lot.
During this process, are you going to school? Are you?
Yes, I went to school. I did quite very well in school, actually. I did all honours subjects. I spent a lot of time doing my homework and my study. My parents were very supportive of education, so we were always pushed to challenge ourselves with education. But I would have been very, I suppose, distant, and when I was around other people, I wasn't the real me. I just put on a face time, and moments where the abuse would have happened. I have one very clear memory where after the first time I was raped and there would have been a lot of pain, I just went up to my room, my bedroom, and I set in ice to just take away the pain. And the hardest part for me, although that was really hard, and you're sitting there and you don't understand what's happening to your body, and I was afraid of bleeding and various things. And I came back down the stairs and I had to just pretend as if nothing had happened because I felt I was going to be in trouble. And that process on a continuous basis was really difficult, and it does a lot of damage, as I say, to your mind as well as a person. And it gives you a lot of hard memories. And that's why I suppose I feel strongly about speaking out. It's not easy for me to kind of remember, and it's not easy for me to speak out about it.
It is. I totally agree with everything you're saying. It is not easy. From 12 years, you know, you're a grown-up woman, you have your own children, you've lived life, and you still have to carry all of that all the way, you know. It is not really, really easy. When you are 14, that was when you said to yourself, you can't take this anymore.
Yes.
And this is where you have to go out there and voice out what you're going through. When you go voice out the first time, how did you feel?
I was very scared back then. I'm not scared anymore, but back then I told a teacher in my school, and he rang my parents and told my parents, and luckily the abuse stopped after that. But I didn't tell him it was me. I pretended it was my friend, and he just saw through it, and he knew that I was talking about myself. And I was very scared of how much trouble I'd be in, and I wanted to protect him, because during those years, I thought that what he did to me, he did out of, like he always told me and had my mind believe that it was because he loved me and that it was all out of love. And you don't understand the grooming process as a child. So I didn't want anybody to be in trouble. I didn't want to be in trouble. I didn't want him being in trouble. And I was so scared, but I knew I didn't want it to happen. And I knew I was scared of the times it did. And at the time he was in jail, and he was coming out of jail for something completely different. And I knew I didn't want to see him walk the streets, and I was afraid. So I had to do something. So I told the teacher, and it stopped, which was great.
Wow. I really applaud you. Now, you're adults, you have to revisit back the past of what has happened. If things had to change back, how would you react?
I suppose I wish I got a lot of help as a child to be able to have dealt with it a long time ago, because now I have children, and I've spent the past number of years, like I wouldn't have been able to do the legal process, to be honest, as a child. I don't know if I would have been strong enough. However, I'm there now, and I've had a lot of depressing moments. I've had suicide attempts, and I'm a mum, and I have 3 amazing children. And I wish that the process of I suppose, recovering from the trauma, I had done a long time before that, because my children now also have been affected through no fault of mine. I've tried really hard to protect them, but they've deserved a mother a lot stronger than I've been capable of being.
Wow. And
I wish that I was able to, I suppose, deal with those demons before I had my children. That would probably be the main thing I would like to have done differently. But like, you know, he came back to Limerick after a very, very long time, and I saw him walk the streets, I saw him talk to children, and I knew I couldn't live with myself if I didn't start the process. I knew it was going to be hard.
Yeah.
I didn't think I was strong enough to do it, but I knew I couldn't live with myself if I didn't try and get him off the streets and away from children.
Okay, let's have you here. We're still going to come back. We're going to talk about child. We're going to talk about different things. But I want to say you're very brave in what you're doing.
Thank you,
So
Chris.
we're going to go on a quick break, and we will come back. We'll continue from here. Okay, if you're stay tuned for more of this, we still have Leona O'Callaghan on the show talking about how she was abused when she was young. Stay tuned for more of this. We'll be right back. Thank you. Welcome back, everybody. We say I'm Leona on the show. How you doing? All good?
Hi, Chris. Good.
Thank you very much. That was a commercial break we're just coming from. Okay, my next question I want to ask you is, how do your family take all of this?
Family, I suppose, would be very private, and so there'd be parts of it that they'd find difficult. That, you know, they've always been, they're amazing people, and I love them dearly, and they love me, and they're very supportive, and they only want what's best for me. And but I suppose I'm very public, speaking out, and that's not always how people feel comfortable. And for some of the family, I'd imagine that they struggle with it, and that's okay, because everybody has a right to cope. They were hurt a lot by what happened as well. My children, I suppose, is the people I listen to most, and before I spoke out and before I named my rapist, I spoke to my children, and I would have listened to them very carefully about what they wanted.
Very, very important.
And they wanted him named. You know, age appropriate, I explained what it would be like, because I knew I would have to waive my anonymity if I want him named. And each of them said what he did was very wrong, and it would be better to name him so other people know that he's a danger to children. I'm proud of my children for that, because it's not easy for them. They go to school, and you know, I saw your mammy on the news and things like. I have a 10-year-old, and then I have an 18-year-old, and you know, obviously it's hard for him to know his mum was raped and to read some of the story. So, but they've both, the three of them have been just amazing, and yeah, I'm very lucky. I'm a very lucky mum.
Amazing, amazing. I'm so happy for you. At least you have your family there for you.
Yes.
That's the most important thing. When there's a problem like this, what you need is support. But to be there, not to judge you, but to comfort you and help you refine strength and find yourself again, because it's not easy. During the court proceedings, when all of this were going on, what were you thinking? Which way do you think this could really go for you? Do you think this could turn out to be, you know?
I kept saying, because the court system can let you down. Sometimes it can get a not guilty plea. Sometimes it doesn't go past the DPP.
Yeah.
Sometimes they don't get an okay sentence. So when I started the process, I said my aim is to make sure I can put my hand on my heart and say I've done everything. Nobody can ever take that away, no matter what way the process goes. And I just made sure that every step of the way I reminded myself what I'm looking for in this process is to put my hand on my heart and say I've done all I can to keep him off the streets. And if the rest is up to the system. But it is a very difficult time, and it's a very difficult process, and an important one. I got a lot of healing. I said what I had to say to him during my victim impact statement, and he pled guilty.
And you also wasn't happy with comment made by the judge as well?
I did. It was more by his defence barrister. His defence barrister pointed out during mitigation that he only held me down once, and that he asked the judge to take into account that he's not a violent man, and there is no such thing as non-violent rape.
Rape is a rape.
Rape is rape.
You have no right to actually, you know, put your hands on anybody if you're not given a permission. And
it's not. There's no such thing as non-violent, because rape is probably one of the most violent things you can do to anybody, a man or a woman. And the fact that I didn't struggle back after the first time, you learn very quickly that it gets worse if you do struggle back, and I just zoned out, and I just waited for it to be over. But I didn't think that should have been held against me, or he should have been given any credit for how I coped in that moment, because it was still as bad, even though I didn't fight physically back. So I suppose, yeah, I did have a lot of issue around some of the defence, what the defence was able to say. For me, it wasn't about what I wore, but there were certain things that just weren't okay, and made me feel very much to blame, when that's not how it should have felt. Yeah, and credit to, what's your woman's name at the Doyle, Ruth? So what's her name? Yeah. When I was watching that on the Doyle, you know, gathering and all of that, she did spoke out about, you know, all the deals and things that happened. Absolutely. What was your take on that? She did an amazing. I'm actually meeting her later this evening, and she's an amazing woman. And I think that it just goes to show, in so many different settings, all of us feel very much a sense of uncomfortableness, and it's working through that discomfort is how change will happen. And for me, that's what Ruth did on that day. She worked through the discomfort of holding underwear up in the doll, and it's just as uncomfortable in a court setting. So I think it gave a very powerful message. I was glad she did.
And the issue with rape went internationally. There are people in the UK, in the US, everywhere talking about what has transpired while you were 12 years of age. And it's not just yourself. There are other people who have actually gone through this process. And you're one of those people here in Ireland who has been able to come out and be able to speak out and take it all from onset to that level. What do you want to put out there for the future for people to watch out for on predator like this?
Well, silence is what I suppose keeps the predator in control, and that's how they're able to do and get away with what they do. And so by breaking that silence, that's how we can actually make a difference and stop the cycle. So by speaking out, and it's hard finding your voice, and it may not be in media, it may not be in a doll setting, but finding your voice and saying what this person is doing is not okay is usually important. And by us speaking about it, it gives the ability for children and other survivors of abuse to say, this happened to me and I'm in pain because of it, and I've been ashamed, and now I want to. And that's why I set up the support group, is so that to take the loneliness out of the process. The Survivor Support Anonymous, we sit down and we don't feel alone anymore, and that's important, because it can be a lonely process.
Let's talk about a charity program you set up. I'm very much interested in knowing more about it, especially for our viewers at home who are watching us right now. It is a good thing when you have come through this kind of process, brave enough, strong enough to speak out. It is not easy for you to set up your charity for people to be involved, get to know. Give us more insight about the charity program.
Yes, it's very new. I only started it about a month or two ago, and it's a 12-step program similar to Alcoholics Anonymous and GROW and various other 12-step programs, and based on similar steps that are adapted for the needs of survivors. So you don't have to believe in a God, which is a major difference between that and some of the other programs. And but it's very much looking forward, and it's very much saying, okay, in spite of what happened to me, I deserve to live a fulfilling life, and how am I keeping myself well? We don't discuss the memories of the trauma, because that would be too triggering, and it wouldn't be healthy for us to sit and listen to each other's memories. But one of our steps is to make sure we have a counsellor to do that. And it's about making ourselves stronger and reminding ourselves, like, step one is, it was not my fault, and I was powerless over the abuse. And we need to remind ourselves of that constantly. So it takes the loneliness out of the process. It makes you feel as though, okay, this person had been in my shoes a month ago, and look, things got easier. And it just helps. It helps so much to be able to see others that are going through different stages, and to feel as though you're surrounded with people who get it, I suppose. In a way that's structured to make sure that you're looking after your wellness, finding fun, because when you've been in survivor mode for so long, you've only survived, and you've learned how to do that very well. But life is more than surviving. Life is about fun and about having a sense of fulfillment as well, and the steps really help you to do that. As survivors, sometimes we forget about ourselves, and we think of everybody else. So that's what we do, and it's pretty. Amazing. And I get just as much as I give in those, because I'm doing my steps myself. So it's great.
You're good at it. This is the thing. Sometimes I know it was a bad thing that happened. It wasn't. It's unacceptable. It's not something we wanted.
No.
It's not what you want your children to get to see or know. And it's a lot to take on board, but setting up this program is a good thing. How are you working around this? You have people to work with you, you have other people to come on board. How is that operating for you?
Yes, there are a number of us that have come on board and done facilitation courses.
Okay, very good.
Just, and like that, we're just putting the board together. Loads of people have showed an interest in other places around the country, and I'd like to be able to I suppose, grow it in a way that it's available to a lot of survivors, whether it's domestic abuse, sexual abuse, or physical abuse. Abuse is abuse, and your confidence and everything else can be low. So I suppose it's about watching my own energy and making sure that, although I am very passionate about things, that I'm also using the steps myself to keep myself well and have that balance in my life, where it's not all effort and it's not all struggle. And the program is what helps me do that. So,
wow,
yeah.
wow. Just before we wrap things up, when this case was going on in court, there was a lovely lady.
Yes.
What's the name? If I can,
Stacey
Murphy or something.
Yes.
And she carried a campaign, and she put out there that women should be able to do whatever they want with their body without a restriction.
Absolutely.
What do you take from that?
Oh, she gave me a big hug, and I really needed it at the time. It was just after the sentencing, and then she went and she did a bit of an exhibition where she was in her underwear to show the insignificance of clothing, and I think she's very brave, and I think her statement is, and she spoke out about her own experience, and yeah, no, it was a huge help to have somebody there to give me a hug and support. And I was also involved in an exhibition where, like that, we showed the clothing of people when they were raped to show the insignificance. There was no common thread. The only common thread is the person who raped us in that clothing were all rapists, but the clothing didn't matter. And I suppose that's what she was trying to show on the day. A woman can wear whatever clothing and are a man and not say, okay, is this rape underwear? Like, that's just stupid. We were better than that as a society. Yeah.
So going forward, what do you want parents to actually do? What do you want schools to actually do? What do you want communities to actually do? Because awareness in anything that has to do with society and rape does matters a lot. Especially when you're a victim, you feel certain information or certain things were put out there in order to educate people. And back in the days you were growing, these are the things that happened. So now we're in a new century. What do you think should be put out there so that people can be aware and get educated and be talked through?
I'd say to parents and to teachers to just watch out for the signs and to keep the conversations going. Don't be afraid of speaking. Speaking doesn't cause trauma. Yes. Speaking about it only stops it. So educate children from a very young age as to it's not okay. Don't expect a child to give a stranger a hug. Let them be safe in their bodies. Let them know it's okay if something makes them feel uncomfortable, and start that conversation. You won't make somebody sexually assaulted by speaking about it. You'll protect them from it so that they can come to you. And just the political side of things and the legal side of things need to look at the process and need to look at how survivors are treated and make that an easier process. And I'll certainly be using my voice to try and make sure that happens. And it needs to be looked at the amount of time it takes.
Okay. All right. So, Leona, thank you very much for coming on the show. Just stay with us out there. Okay, we want to wish you best of luck. Have you got like a website people can find you?
Yes, www.survivorsportanon.org. People can find me I'm on Facebook as well. Anybody can send me a message.
Perfect. Thank you very much. You're such a wonderful
Chris,
woman.
And thanks for
You're
giving
brave.
us
I appreciate the fact. Thank you so much. God bless you. Thank you very much. Okay, viewers at home, this is all going to wrap things up. It's Leona on the show today. We want to say thank you now for to share everything she went through at the age of 12. And I hope for those of you who are victim of this, you've been inspired by what she went through and what she has shared today. We want you to speak out anytime, anywhere. If you discover something that you feel is not right, talk to somebody. Don't wait too long, because when you wait too long, it's hard for people to believe you. So do it right now when it happens. Thank you for tuning in. I'm always your host, Chris Honors, here on the Jim Request on Ben Television Sky Channel 175. Keep following us on Facebook, Twitter, and also on Instagram. If you have anything you want to share with us on this very segment, please do so. Otherwise, we'll see you next week. Take care and God bless. Bye for now. Thank you very much for coming.